Hi, everyone. Chris Stegall here from MK Partners, joined by Jesus Penaloza. Jesus, thanks for doing this today.
Awesome. Hi, everybody.
And today, it is the week of the Spring 22 Salesforce release. So lots of new features, upgrades, updates coming to orgs everywhere. So that means I had to put on the Dreamforce hat and the Trailblazer hoodie. And Jesus and I are going to dive through our picks for the release highlights, the things that we're most excited about seeing come to orgs and are going to make lives easier for users, admins, and devs alike. So let's dive in with a look at my screen right here. You have probably had a chance to take a look at the Spring 22 release notes. If you haven't, they're available at help.salesforce.com, and they have a handy breakdown in the nav bar on the left-hand side of all of the clouds, industries, and feature areas that are getting a little bit of a rework. But today, Jesus and I are going to be talking about some of the ones that we think are the most exciting from a user, admin, dev, and Salesforce aficionado perspective. The first one, I will admit, a little bit less exciting exciting from a security standpoint, but not so exciting from a, oh man, I can't wait to use it standpoint, is the multi-factor authentication requirement. This has been in the works for a long time. We have, seen the warnings over the last 18 months from Salesforce saying, hey, it's about time to turn on multi-factor authentication. Hey, here's a trailhead to guide your users through it. Well, the time has come. All folks are now contractually obligated to use multi-factor authentication in their Salesforce orgs. So this is less of a surprise and more of a, if you haven't done your homework yet, it's time to do it so you're not in breach of contract. So get your MFA set up. The Salesforce Authenticator is a handy tool on your users' phones that makes it super simple to log in and make sure that you're up to date with best practices security-wise. Now, with that out of the way, we can actually dive into a feature that I think is going to be really exciting from users on a data level: the ability to edit multiple fields in line on a report run page. So as Salesforce admins, obviously, we love reports. We love being able to pull any of the data. We always say the golden rule of Salesforce is if it's in the org, if it's on the platform, then we can report on it. And reports are powerful tools, both from a strategy and a day-to-day operations perspective. It's great to be able to have all of the relevant information in front of you when you need it. One of the things that this is going to help is it's going to make reports more directly actionable. So before, your users might pull up a report. The C-suite obviously loves reports because they get visibility into the actions and goings on and where things are in the pipeline and everything like that. But it sort of historically has been a two-part process where the reports are where you get a sense of the data and get a chance to look at how everything fits together. But then if you see something that needs to be updated, you would have to click through into the record, go to another tab, make your changes there, which made reports not so much a endpoint, but sort of a midpoint to check your work or check on the status of things in your org. What this is going to let us do is edit certain fields straight from the report. So the possibility that immediately comes to mind is like a pipeline report for a sales rep. If you're taking a look at your whole pipeline from a report view and you can see all of the prospect or lead accounts that are tied to an opportunity, you can see the value of those opportunities, the stage. Now, if you want to update some of the stages or update the values before your sales meeting, instead of having to click through every opportunity, you can just take your opportunity report and go ahead and edit things in line right there. So it's really going to reduce the number of clicks. And it's not just for sales folks. It's going to be, I think, anywhere that you use reports. Maybe you have a task report where you want to call down you're a service agent following up on support tickets. Now you'll be able to make those calls and update the stage of the service request, update relevant fields, add a secondary phone number, add a secondary email address, all of that straight from a report. The end result being, I think, that your users will spend more time on their reports pages and have fewer Salesforce tabs open. So that's going to be a good thing for adoption, a good thing for ease of use, and should just make the reports more dynamic. Next feature that I'm excited about is related to the in-app guidance that you can now put onto your page layouts in Salesforce. So historically, we've had the ability to add little pop-up text boxes that say, hey, you're looking at this page. Here are some things that you should know about using the page to help drive adoption and things like that. But what we found was that a lot of folks use those pop-ups to explain sort of edge cases or exceptions or standard operating procedure at the business, where say, hey, it looks like you're looking at an invoice. Make sure that the invoice is set to net 30, or make sure that if you change X, that you also do Y. And so what you ended up with was a lot of in-app guidance that wasn't relevant to the content that was on the screen. It was relevant to a situation that might arise from that screen. What the ability to choose where our prompts appear is going to do is give us more flexibility on when and where we show that pop-up guidance. So instead of having somebody land on like an invoices tab and having guidance pop up that says, here's everything you might need to know about invoices, instead we can say, oh, now you're looking at the invoice tab. Once you've changed this field to net 30, then we have the guidance pop up that says, remember when you're using net 30 to do X, Y, and Z. If they change it to net 60, then we have the guidance that says, oh, when you're doing net 60, do this. So the result is going to be less lengthy pop-ups popping up every time somebody uses a tab and more contextually specific pop-ups, and the flexibility to really shape that user experience. Because I know I had the experience in the past where you get sort of muscle memory. You get used to every time I click on this tab, that little guidance box opens. I always close it immediately because I know it's not relevant 95% of the time. And then when you end up on one of those 5% edge cases, you didn't read the guidance. You instinctively just closed it by clicking the X, and now you're probably going to forget what you were supposed to do. So giving folks that flexibility to only populate it when it's relevant is going to reduce the number of clicks users do in their majority cases, because they're not going to have to close that box every time. And it's going to better serve to remind them of what they should be doing and help them use the app and the platform more effectively. So really excited about this, both for admins and for users. The next two features that I want to cover are related to Experience Cloud. So this is, formerly known as Salesforce Community Cloud. This is the tool that lets us spin up websites, spin up portals for customers, or client portals, partner portals, things of that nature, to take content and make it publicly available on the web, but still powered by your org. Has always been a really cool tool. Every year at Dreamforce, there's a different brand showing off. I think this year it was Mercedes showing off their customer portal and their car configurator. And it's just really pretty incredible how it gives even non-tech savvy account managers or marketers or sales departments the ability to spin up world-class websites that look like they've taken years, have all of the security baked in, the authentication if you're trying to give people accounts and things of that nature. So the fact that anytime there's like an expansion to Experience Cloud, I get excited. This one is really infrastructure focused. Customer community licenses are now going to be able to support up to 100 million site members. And it says 100 million plus site members. So theoretically, even more than that. But I think that's probably outside of the bounds of most Experience Cloud instances. I think most of us probably don't have 100 million users hitting our pages, but I think it's a testament to the multi-tenant architecture of Salesforce that they can promise that level of support and that level of bandwidth and structure there. But I think it's also going to really free us up to think bigger with Experience Cloud. Like, we're going to get to a point where a company probably could build their entire website around Experience Cloud and then using functionality from Marketing Cloud or Pardot or Salesforce CMS to populate the content. But again, it seems like a step really in the right direction in terms of making Salesforce maintain its position as a single source of truth inside an organization, and then externalizing the relevant data and making sure that all of your actions and all of the engagements that your organization participates in and experiences from customers, clients, prospects, leads, and outsiders all stays within the platform. It's all reportable, it's all actable. So this is a pretty tremendous and exciting update. And in that same vein, Experience Cloud is getting the ability to use micro batching to process more self-registrations on high traffic sites. So if you anticipate that you're going to be a site with 100 million plus users, then obviously you are going to need to know that those folks can all get registered quickly. The last thing you would want is Salesforce to say, hey, we can handle 100,000 plus users as long as they sign up one at a time over the course of the next 100 million years. No. So of course, when they made the infrastructure upgrades to be able to handle that kind of workload, they also improved the registration process. So if you are a site that expects more than 500,000 self-registration requests per day, you'll be able to handle it. And the use cases they give, are vaccine scheduling, event ticketing, high volume commerce. Obviously, those are, some of the more modern use cases, but I think this is also really going to come into play for anybody that is deciding, has an existing customer base and wants to roll out like a client portal, or has a pretty big database of existing prospects who have engaged, but wants to invite them to join a more personalized experience. So using the Mercedes example from Dreamforce, Mercedes knows everyone who's ever bought a car from them, presumably. And let's say they want to roll out a new car configurator. They've never done this before, so they spin up Experience Cloud, and now they want to invite all their clients. Prior to this update, that would have been a tiered release. You would have had to say, okay, let's pick 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 folks at a time, and we'll invite them in waves. That way we don't overwhelm the registration functionality. Now, you don't have to worry about further segmenting your lists like that. You can say, hey, let's get all of our clients the same invite on the same day. They'll all be able to sign up, and we're not going to run into any user speed bumps where folks try to register, they can't, they become frustrated, and they write off the whole portal as a waste of their time. So I think Experience Cloud really growing into its own here with, both the ability to handle 100 million plus users and the ability to get them registered quickly. So you can get to those numbers and really test the limits of Experience Cloud. Now here, I do have a few more I want to hit, but Jesus, I think this is a good chance to let you jump in. I know from a marketing perspective, you were taking a look at some of the features that really jumped out to you. So why don't you speak to those? I'll give you the screen here.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everybody. There's so many different changes happening with this spring release. However, though, I was able to kind of fine tune to some of the more relevant topics based on the current workload that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. So it's pretty exciting. So I look forward to sharing some of this stuff with you. First up here is the build faster with page layouts. So, as working within Pardot and doing page layouts, I did find that you were very restricted and limited to the type of layouts and how you were able to modify the page itself. Inserting new rows did limit your capability of how many different subsections you allowed, which they are called as breadcrumbs. So with this new update, they're actually allowing you to create a variation of different layouts, as shown here, from the standard one column, which is what we've always seen, to be able to split that in half, or even be able to do 1-to-3 or 3-to-1 ratio, as they call it, or even up to 3 or 4 columns. This comes very handy just because you're able to integrate, for example, a form in one of the columns, whereas some text in another, and then, for example, an image, an illustration of something at the other at the same time. And then you can always add additional rows in order to add more columns in there. So you can pretty much splice everything up. So the breadcrumb is the one that allows you to add additional rows, which then you can break down individual columns. So this is going to come very handy for me moving forward doing additional pages, especially because those landing pages come quite handy.
Yeah,
And I'm
and it'll
able
also
to,
be, I think it'll also be really cool just to, I think one of the issues that marketers run into when they're exposed to other people's marketing is you recognize exactly what it is and how it was made. And this will help Pardot landing pages not all look like Pardot landing pages. So you won't have that initial, like, oh, I know exactly how this was built and where this came from. It'll let you really personalize it and customize it so that your organization can have the look and feel that fits with your current branding and your current website, not like something that was whipped up in too rigid a structure to try to match what Pardot forced you to do, right?
yep, definitely hit the nail in the coffin there, Chris. So this one I'm looking forward to using quite a bit moving forward. Next up is here is just a little bit of protection. So I guess on the same line, obviously, as we all know, we've used forms in the past various times for different purposes, either events or collecting data of some sort. So one of the biggest issues when that comes is validating whether data is legitimate and it's actually something that you can use. Well, most of the time you may run into some spamming or some sort of repetitive information that fills up your database. So now there's actually going to be a CAPTCHA functionality built into the forms starting the 14th of this month, which then will require registers, people that will register, um, the ability to actually have to do a CAPTCHA, complete a CAPTCHA section in order for them to actually authenticate themselves. That way, all these spammers and bot automated sign in will not allow you to complete the forms and submit the information. So this will stop a lot of that, unnecessary data that your org does not need, because then you're receiving information and your reports, your information is not valid because the information is not what do you call realistic. It's more just automated.
Yeah.
So this is a handy tool.
Yeah. And this is sort of an extension because currently in Pardot, we had the ability to add a CAPTCHA to forms, but it was just the basic checkbox that says, like, check here, I am not a robot. Um, and we know that those have become more and more gameable lately. So I think the reCAPTCHA here, I think, is going to be the kind where it's, here's 6 letters and type them in like a human, or the kind with the, which of these 9 images contains a traffic light, and you get to click those little buttons. So stuff that like we're familiar with, but should be a little bit more robust in terms of stopping bots. One thing that I have always liked about Pardot, and that not a lot of people know about, is the built-in honeypot. So on any form in Pardot, there's actually an invisible field, or 2. I think it's just 1 field. There's an invisible field that will never show up on your form as rendered in the browser, and humans can't see it. But if I build a little JavaScript or Python bot or something to go peruse websites, look for forms to fill out, and register, a bunch of email addresses for them, that field is visible to me, the robot, and so I fill it out. And then Pardot looks at every form submission and it says, hey, if somebody filled out that invisible form or that invisible field, they're not a human, they're a robot, so throw their results away right away. So I always thought that was a really cool way to handle form security, but it is nice to see that they're continually adapting it, because I'm sure that the more sophisticated bots know to ignore the honeypot anyway. So this is really exciting.
Cool. Awesome. So next up is, something that I just didn't realize, and I guess it makes sense. It's more about the requirements for utilizing the Salesforce mobile app. So working in the marketing industry and doing quite a bit of events in the past here, even up to now, one of the things you want to make sure you have the proper hardware with the latest OS available from both either an iOS or Android perspective, as this would fall into. And for those individuals that may have been using, devices with the previous generation of iOS or Android, you might want to look into to make sure that it is compatible with the latest one, because Same thing. Once this Spring release rolls out, then all the Android 8.8 or below, I mean, below 8.8 and iOS below 14.0 will no longer be fully compatible with the Salesforce mobile app. So if you're planning to do some sort of event activity and you require the utilities of the Salesforce app, in the showroom, in the event itself, then you might want to make sure that all your devices are upgraded or at least patched up to the latest iOS if they're fully compatible.
Yep.
So this is one of the things I look into, just because equipment is very essential, and at the time of the events, you usually are may not be aware of this. So this is not something you can easily fix. You would have to bring in new equipment and stuff. So
Yeah. Especially if you're a developer with like an App Exchange app who maybe at events has demo tablets or phones so people can check out the functionality on Salesforce Mobile. You'll want to make sure all those demo tablets and phones are updated to the latest OS so that you don't get to an event and then suddenly find that you can't access anything or it doesn't look the same way it does on the prospect's phone, right?
oh yeah, definitely. That'll be a make it or break it deal at
Yep.
some point if you can't show off your uh, demos there. All
Cool.
right. So next thing I have here is, another Pardot, since I have been learning more on Pardot side. This was pretty interesting to see that, there's going to be some privacy changes. And these kind of tie in with Apple's mail privacy changes as well. So I guess we're just trying to make sure that Salesforce is up to date with all the standards, especially from Apple's side. So instead of just utilizing the open rule audit page, now you'll actually be able to have a different way to prioritize metrics on here. So here's a quick example here of how you would go into an actual overview tab where you can see more than any part of automation that you set up to do some sort of open rule. It would go ahead and help break based on what type of automation you set up.
So is that breaking it down based on the type of open? Is Pardot going to have the ability to differentiate between something being opened by Apple's servers, downloading the content so it can serve it up to somebody on their phone later?
That's a good question, Chris. I think this applies to the idea of only defining the open rule audit. I mean, the automating that when an email is opened, whether or not that will count as part of your metrics value. So I think they're going to next step to actually differentiate where exactly that open is coming from.
Okay. Does it give a breakdown of what those next steps are? I'm trying to zoom in on your
Um,
screen, but without.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, the open rules audit goes from either engagement programs, program triggers, dynamic list, or automation rules.
Okay. Yeah, because I know the Apple change was something that marketers have been dealing with at the end of last year and this year because Apple, essentially said, "Hey, we're going to download everything to our server, so anybody that tracks open rates is going to see that as an open. So if you send an email to 100 iPhone users, you're going to have 100 opens, but that doesn't mean that 100 pairs of eyeballs have seen it. That just means our server has seen it 100 times, and you know,
Oh
marketers have
yeah,
just been
definitely.
moving on to using click-through rate more heavily, or um, you know, trying to prep the C-suite to say, hey, you're going to see our open rates go way up. You're going to see our click to open ratio go way down. That has nothing to do with changes on our side. That has everything to do with changes on the most widely used phone on the market. So it's cool to see Pardot adapting to that change in the marketplace.
hmm And the last thing I have, it's relating one more time with Pardot, but kind of goes alongside with the single sign-on user changes that actually went into play earlier this month, which is the actual Pardot Classic app is actually being retired. So unfortunately, I was not able to witness or was not part of Salesforce environment when this launched, right? And obviously, it's been used for some time. So, but with the same mindset as the single user sign on, um, we're getting enough time. So pretty much the actual installation of the classic app was actually, taken care of last month. I mean, last year. So around October, um, you no longer could actually do new installs on for new accounts. So existing accounts could still use it, but new accounts were no longer able to install the classic version. And then actually this year in October 17th, Salesforce will retire the classic app from all organizations. So there's plenty of time to start doing the migration or transitioning to the actual Lightning version of it. And I, from some of those people that I've got used to, I'm assuming part of Classic has worked really well, and some orgs have used it and continue to use it, and are not going to be happy with the changes. But at least we're getting enough time to go ahead and start putting a transition plan into play moving forward.
And the good news, I think, for your stickiest users who are married to because the difference between the classic app in Pardot and the Lightning app are not super significant. The biggest real look and feel update that I've experienced is the classic app really echoed the standalone pi.pardot.com piece, where you had the navigation bar on the left-hand side and it was like prospects and you would hover over them. Then you'd have like emails, drafts, whatever. And you have like all of your content and it was all that like nav bar. It just replaces the nav bar with your standard Salesforce tabs, Lightning tabs across the top of the interface. Everything's basically still in the same bucket you'd expect to find it in. But the good news for users whose muscle memory is too locked in is when you try to open the classic app now, you get that warning that says, hey, this is being retired. And there's a little tiny footprint or footnote there that says the pi.pardot.com access will continue for the foreseeable future. So if you have somebody who is, would be absolutely lost trying to use the standard Lightning interface, you can always just have them log in at pi.pardot.com. And they'll get that like look and feel that they're used to, at least until Salesforce tells us, like we're turning that off too. You've had enough time. Learn how to use Lightning.
Well, that's a good thing to know then. At least, they have a chance to continue using, but then slowly start adapting. Yeah. Some people, I guess, adapt a little bit, faster or slower. And it's nice to give everyone their fair share of time to adjust. But obviously, just like everything else, there has to be a time limit set before you can transition.
I'm just looking forward to not seeing that little warning at the top anymore when I click over into the app saying like, hey, if you're still using Classic, make sure you switch over. Here's the deadline. Because like you said, it started last year. So I'm excited just to get everyone on Lightning. So,
well, it's good to know that the changes are minimal. So, I've only been using the newest, the Lightning. So obviously, I'm not too fully aware.
Yeah,
but it's a good thing.
Definitely. And I think you said that was your last highlight, so I can switch back over.
I think that was keeping it short a little bit this time. So as I dive into more products, Salesforce products, I'll be able to kind of elaborate more. But it's really nice to kind of dive in and learn more about the specifics, especially when you can actually understand the terminology. So It's a really good experience. So looking forward to summer 2022.
Yeah. All right, now I'll get my screen back up here. The next bit I want to talk about, super exciting from an operational perspective, is revenue intelligence. It's a new suite of features coming to the Salesforce platform, sort of putting together the data visualization of Tableau, the artificial intelligence capacities of Einstein, the forecasting and pipeline management that we've come to expect from Salesforce proper, and sort of putting all of that together into a component of the platform that will really help you do a deep dive analytically on your revenue and predict future revenue and plan data-driven action related to all of that information. So I got quite a few tabs here because each one of these little links just kept revealing more and more cool information. But really the overview of revenue insights is going to be the ability to generate more revenue and build stronger pipelines. It's going to give sales teams performance insights improve forecast accuracy, and ultimately generate more revenue. And this is something that's coming to Sales Cloud, Lightning Experience. Everyone's on Lightning Experience now, for enterprise and unlimited editions, and for free. So no increased license cost, assuming you're on one of the higher tier levels of Salesforce. And just a really cool way for them to roll in a bunch of those recent developments and acquisitions like Tableau and Einstein into something that we're going to be able to see real on the ground value from initially. So what does it look like? Well, it gives you a overview dashboard of your revenue performance, which is going to put all of that critical information together on one screen, everything that's related to your revenue, and it's all going to be manageable from permission sets the same way your existing dashboards and components are, but really sort of livens up the feel with this more Tableau, data viz heavy kind of presentation than a standard Salesforce dashboard, and give you insights onto quota attainment, team and individual statistics, whether or not folks are on or off track, and everything being updated in real time so you can see how the changes in an opportunity are sort of snowballing down the pipeline and are going to affect revenue, ensuring that your users, your managers, and the C-suite all have the most up-to-date information at a glance. I think this is really keyed up to become one of the most used dashboards in orgs across the org chart. You're also going to get some team productivity and team performance dashboards. I think this is going to be more popular from like a sales manager, team lead perspective. So sort of that middle management chunk from managers up to VPs, we'll say. But again, really just drawing in all of the relevant data between actions and revenue. So taking the guesswork out of that missing link between what efforts are we making and when is money coming in the door. With the help of the Einstein artificial intelligence and the Einstein analytics to really break down your historical data and then make intelligent predictions about what effect current actions will have on the future, I think really bridges that gap, because everyone that's signs up for Salesforce does so with the goal of saying, like, if only we had our data in a format that we could manage it, that we could analyze it, that we could parse it, to help us make better decisions moving forward and to make sure that all of our decisions are driven by the data. This is going to take the guesswork out. It's going to really show you, here's historically how those actions have affected revenue. So here's what, you could use Einstein Prediction Builder or Einstein Next Best Action to suggest what you should do in the future. But even if you're not that gung-ho about the artificial intelligence in your org yet, this is going to give a live update look at how individual changes affect revenue and give your managers more perspective on what kind of decisions they should be making moving forward, and then be able to get a live look at how it is affecting the bottom line. And speaking of bottom line, this component of Revenue Insights is the ability to see your bottom line with the sales performance dashboard. So we looked at sort of an overall revenue causes and effects dashboard that I think is going to be tremendously popular. Then we had the team analytics. And now this is a sales performance dashboard that's really going to dive into like a specific team member's activity and the revenue they're generating. So instead of just having like a pipeline report on your weekly sales call where you say, here's everything that I think is 90% to close within 30 days. Here's everything that's 3 months out at 50%. You'll be able to look at the actual revenue, not at those pipeline numbers, and really be able to start making future decisions based on the revenue that you can be committed to, based on the revenue that is going to be there, instead of, takes the guesswork out of forecasting, I should say. And the last dashboard or data viz component of it that I think is really exciting is the ability to see pipeline changes in a dynamic chart. So this pipeline flow chart is going to show you the change in opportunities in different forecast categories based on filter criteria. So now, instead of those sales meetings being a pipeline dashboard, maybe whether you do the Kanban view, or maybe you just do a report screen where it has all of your opportunities, their probability to close, stage, etc. Now you'll be able to see a real quality data visualization that's filterable by month, by user, the date of period. So you'll be able to have, a manager running through a sales meeting will be able to go rep by rep, looking at this month, this quarter, and this year, and really see how their activities and updates to their pipeline have affected revenue, but also their individual goals and KPIs and metrics. So all of those together, the components that make up the real meat of revenue insights, I think are going to pretty dramatically change what screens users, managers, and admins look at in their regular meetings, and are going to give us just so much more actionable intelligence in the world of revenue, which I know is the main driver for sales folks, marketers, anybody who is in charge of bringing money in the door is going to love these features. And like I said, included on Enterprise and Unlimited Edition, so no reason not to check them out as soon as they hit your org. And that, I think, wraps up this round of Salesforce release highlights for the Spring 22 edition. I want to thank Jesus for joining us and running us through those features that were cool for marketers, with a real focus on Pardot, and the mobile stuff is super important for folks that are doing events or anybody that has a remote workforce, or folks that might be logging in from the airport. And I think that happens a lot for sales reps. If you're making a physical sales call and now you need to go ahead and update your opportunity notes, it's way easier to do that on your phone in your car before you hit the road again than it is to pull out your laptop while you're in the lobby at your prospective client, right? So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Cool. So thank you for joining us, everybody. I will throw links to the release notes here, and links to the individual highlights that Jesus and I mentioned in the description of this. So feel free to click and peruse at your own leisure if you'd like. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the cloud.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.